Two of the most talked about finance books of our time are Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Both books have influenced millions of readers, but they approach the subject of money from very different angles. Kiyosaki focuses on financial education, the difference between assets and liabilities, and how the rich think differently than the poor. His book is full of simple yet powerful lessons that challenge traditional schooling and career advice. On the other hand, Morgan Housel looks at money through the lens of human behavior. He argues that financial success is less about knowledge and more about psychology, how we make decisions, how we handle greed and fear, and how we behave when things go wrong. So today, let's put these two books side by side, not to pick a winner, but to really understand their differences, their strengths, their weaknesses, and how we can apply both in real life. The core philosophy. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the core message is this: the rich think differently. Robert Kiyosaki grew up with two father figures, his biological dad, the poor dad who was well-educated but financially struggling, and his friend's father, the rich dad, who didn't have a college degree but built wealth through smart investing and entrepreneurship. Kiyosaki argues that financial freedom comes from acquiring assets that generate income, like rental properties, stocks, businesses. An asset, on the other hand, takes money out of your pocket, like a car loan or a big mortgage. For him, wealth is building enough assets that your money works for you, instead of you working for money. Now, Morgan Housel, in The Psychology of Money, takes a very different route. His central point is that money isn't just math, it's behavior. People with the same income or education can have completely different financial outcomes because of their emotions, biases, and habits. He emphasizes humility, patience, and the ability to avoid big mistakes. So if Kiyosaki's philosophy is about changing the way you think about wealth, Housel's is about changing the way you act with wealth. What does wealth mean? Kiyosaki defines wealth in terms of assets. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket: rental properties, stocks, businesses. A liability, on the other hand, takes money out of your pocket, like a car loan or a big mortgage. For him, wealth is building enough assets that your money works for you instead of you working for money. Now, Housel's definition of wealth is more abstract but equally powerful. He says wealth is what you don't see. If someone's driving a flashy car, that doesn't necessarily mean they're wealthy. It might mean they spent most of their savings on that car. True wealth is the money you don't spend, the savings and investments that give you freedom and security. In practice, both definitions matter. Kiyosaki gives you a system for building income-generating assets. Housel reminds you that even if you have assets, it's your invisible savings and restraint that create real freedom. Education about money. One of Kiyosaki's biggest criticisms of the modern school system is that it doesn't teach financial literacy. We learn algebra, chemistry, and history, but almost nothing about taxes, investing, or building wealth. His book fills this gap by teaching simple principles: the difference between assets and liabilities, the power of passive income, and the importance of financial education. Now, Housel doesn't disagree that financial knowledge is important, but he makes a crucial point. Knowledge alone isn't enough. People often know what they should do: save more, invest wisely, avoid debt, but they don't actually do it. Why? Because emotions get in the way. Fear during a market crash, greed during a boom, or the desire to keep up with friends and neighbors leads to poor decisions. This is where the two authors complement each other. Kiyosaki gives you the technical understanding of money, while Housel explains why, despite knowing better, many people still fail financially. Risk and investing. Kiyosaki encourages taking risks. He believes that being too cautious keeps people trapped in jobs they don't like. He tells readers to invest in real estate, start businesses, and learn through trial and error. He praises leveraging debt, what he calls good debt, to buy income-producing assets. On Housel, he warns that humans often overestimate their risk tolerance. People say they're okay with risk until the stock market drops 40% and they panic sell everything. His book is filled with stories of investors who lost fortunes not because they lacked knowledge, but because they couldn't control their emotions. He argues that the most important skill in investing is staying invested and letting compounding work its magic. Here's the balance. Kiyosaki motivates you to take bold action, while Housel reminds you not to blow up your wealth with one bad decision. Lifestyle and spending. Kiyosaki is very direct. Don't waste money on liabilities. Buying a bigger house than you need or driving an expensive car will only drain your finances. His philosophy is almost minimalist. Only spend money if it helps you build assets. Housel takes a softer approach. He doesn't shame spending, but he asks us to question our motives. Are we buying things because they truly make us happy or because we want to impress others? He points out that chasing status through money never ends because there will always be someone richer. Together, these ideas suggest a middle ground. Cut down on ego-driven spending, but don't be afraid to enjoy money when it genuinely improves your life. Time and long-term thinking. For Kiyosaki, time is about creating generational wealth. He encourages teaching kids about money and leaving behind a financial legacy. He believes money should buy freedom, not just comfort. For Housel, time is about patience and compounding. His most famous lesson is that compounding returns require time, and the biggest mistakes investors make is interrupting the compounding process by constantly buying and selling. Both authors agree on one thing. Long-term thinking is the key. But Kiyosaki applies it to entrepreneurship and legacy, while Housel applies it to investment patience and behavior. Now, let's be honest, both books have been criticized. Kiyosaki's critics argue that his advice is too simplistic and doesn't always apply to everyone. Not everyone can just go out and buy real estate or start a business. Plus, his books sometimes oversell the dream of entrepreneurship without addressing the risks in detail. Housel's critics say his book is inspiring, but not practical enough. He gives us psychological insights, but fewer step-by-step instructions on what to do actually. The reality, both perspectives are true. You can't blindly follow Kiyosaki's aggressive approach, and you can't only rely on Housel's mindset without practical action. Combining both gives a more realistic picture. Which should you read? So which book is better? Honestly, that depends on what stage you're at. If you're someone who has never thought deeply about money, Rich Dad, Poor Dad will change your mindset. It will open your eyes to the fact that assets and liabilities aren't the same, and that your job alone won't make you rich. If you're someone who already understands money but struggles with discipline, The Psychology of Money is the book for you. It will help you avoid mistakes, understand your relationship with money, and stick to good habits. But the real magic happens when you read both. Imagine combining Kiyosaki's financial strategies with Housel's psychological awareness. You'd not only know how to build wealth, but also how to keep it, enjoy it, and not sabotage yourself. In the end, these books aren't competitors, they're complements. Kiyosaki gives you the toolbox, while Housel makes sure you don't misuse it. One is about building financial knowledge, the other is about mastering financial behavior. So instead of asking which is better, maybe the better question is, which one do I need right now? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you find yourself more inspired by Kiyosaki's practical lessons on assets and liabilities, or by Housel's psychological insights into why we handle money the way we do? Drop your answer in the comments, and let's start a discussion.